Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we are going to talk about the RMS Titanic. This is part 1, so please watch part 2, which is about what happened to the people in the water after the ship sank. But let's get on with this episode. The RMS Titanic was a luxury steamship which sank in the early hours of April 15, 1912, off the coast of Newfoundland in the North Atlantic, after sideswiping an iceberg during its maiden voyage. The accident claimed the lives of over 1,500 of the 2,240 passengers and crew members on board. Numerous books, articles, and movies have been based on the Titanic, including the 1997 film by James Cameron.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron.
The narrative of the ship has become well known as a warning against the dangers of human arrogance. Building the Titanic. Intense rivalry between competing shipping lines in the early half of the 20th century led to the creation of the Titanic. Specifically, Cunard, a reputable British company with 2 exceptional ships that were among the most luxurious and advanced of their period, challenged the White Star Line for supremacy in the steamship market. After going into service in 1907, Cunard's Mauretania immediately established a record for the fastest average speed during a transatlantic voyage, which it maintained for 22 years. At 23 knots or 27 miles per hour. The same year saw the launch of Cunard's second masterpiece, Lusitania, which was praised for its magnificent interiors. On May 7, 1915, a German U-boat launched a torpedo that sank the Lusitania, killing about 1,200 of the 1,959 persons on board, and triggered the United States entering into World War I. In the same year that Cunard debuted its 2 majestic liners, White Star CEO J. Bruce Ismay met with William J. Perret, chairman of the shipping building firm of Harland & Wolff, to consider building 3 huge ships. Each ship would be the largest of its era, measuring 882 feet in length and 92 feet at their widest point, and would gain membership in the new Olympic class of liners. The construction of the Titanic, the second of the 3 ocean liners, started in March 1909 and lasted for 2 years without interruption at the enormous Harland & Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. The Titanic's massive hull, which at the time was the largest movable man-made object in the world, descended the slipways and into Belfast River Lagan on May 31, 1911. The launching, which took just over a minute and went off without a hitch, drew over 100,000 spectators. Thousands of workers would spend the following year constructing the ship's decks, designing her opulent interiors, and installing the 29 enormous boilers that would power her 2 main steam engines at the massive fitting-out dock, where the hull was promptly hauled. The Titanic's deadly defects. Some theories claim that the Titanic's design, which mainly hailed as cutting edge, was doomed from the beginning. A switch on the bridge allowed the Olympic-class ships to have a double bottom and 15 watertight bulkhead compartments, with electronic watertight doors that could be opened separately or all at once. Shipbuilder magazine declared the Olympic liners practically unsinkable in a special issue because of their watertight bulkheads. Although the individual bulkheads were watertight, the walls separating them only extended a few feet above the waterline, allowing water to spill from one compartment into another, particularly if the ship started to list or pitch forward. This flaw in the watertight compartment design was a major contributing factor to the Titanic's sinking. The Titanic's insufficient lifeboat capacity was the second serious safety failure that led to the loss of so many people. There were only 16 boats and 4 collapsibles that could hold 1,178 people. the Titanic could accommodate up to 2,435 passengers and with a crew of about 900. She could accommodate almost 3,300 people. Because of this, only 1/3 of the people on board could find seats in the lifeboats were fully loaded during an emergency evacuation. Despite being woefully insufficient by today's standards, Titanic's lifeboat supply actually surpassed the British Board of Trade's needs. Travelers aboard the Titanic. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic left Southampton, England for its inaugural journey, causing quite the stir. With 2,240 passengers and crew, or souls as the term was used in the maritime business, the Titanic sailed for New York City after making stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland. As befitted the world's most renowned ship's first transatlantic voyage, many of these individuals were dignitaries, celebrities, wealthy industrialists, and high-ranking officials. First and foremost was Thomas Andrews, the ship's builder from Harland and Wolff, and J. Bruce Ismay, the managing director of the White Star Line. The banker J.P. Morgan, who had chosen Ismay as the corporate officer, and whose International Mercantile Marine Shipping Trust owned the White Star Line, was not present. After being delayed by some business issues, Morgan abruptly canceled his plans to join his friends on the Titanic. John Jacob Astor IV, the heir to the Astor family fortune, was the wealthiest passenger on board. He had made headlines the year before when he married Madeline Talmadge Force, a young woman who was 18 years old. He was 48 years old. Isidor Straus, the elderly owner of Macy's, and his wife Ida were among the other notable passengers, as were industrialist Benjamin Guggenheim. His mistress, his valet, and his chauffeur accompanied him on the ship. Another passenger was Margaret Molly Brown, who would come to be known as the unsinkable Molly Brown, for keeping the peace and order while the lifeboats were being loaded and encouraging her fellow survivors. In addition to academics, tourists, journalists, and others who would typically receive first-class treatment and accommodations on most other ships, the staff members who attended to this group of first-class luminaries were primarily traveling in second class. However, with over 700 passengers, third class had by far the largest group of passengers compared to the other two categories combined. Some had made the passage for less than $20. Third class was the main source of revenue for shipping companies such as the White Star Line, and Titanic was built to provide these passengers with facilities and accommodations that were better than those found in third class on other ships of the time. The Titanic begins to sail. There were a few abnormalities with the Titanic's April 10th departure from Southampton. One of her bunkers was found to have a small coal fire, which was a frightening but typical event on steamships during the era. To get to the fire's base, Stove shoveled the flaming coals away and hosed it down. The captain and the chief engineer evaluated the situation and decided that there was little chance that it had damaged the hull. As a result, the stokers were given the order to keep the fire under control while at sea. A few Titanic experts have proposed that the crew had to try a full-speed passage after the ship departed Southampton because the fire had gotten out of control and they couldn't prevent the deadly impact with the iceberg. The Titanic's departure from Southampton Pier was another disturbing incident. She almost collided with the SS New York as she was getting underway. This is commonly cited by superstitious Titanic enthusiasts as the worst possible omen for a ship setting out on her maiden voyage. The Titanic strikes an iceberg. The Titanic was sailing on calm seas under a clear moonless sky on April 14th, after 4 days of quiet sailing. Other ships occasionally reported seeing ice and reported it to the Titanic, many of which were avoided. When a lookout noticed an iceberg emerging from a faint fog far ahead at around 11:30 p.m., they sounded the warning bell and called the bridge. Rather than striking the berg directly, Titanic appeared to skim along its side, scattering ice chunks on the forward deck, as the engines were swiftly reversed and the ship was turned sharply. The lookouts were relieved that there had been no collision. They were unaware of the iceberg's sharp underwater spur, which caused a 300-foot hull gash beneath the ship's waterline. 5 compartments were already filled with seawater by the time the captain and Harlan Wolfe Thomas Andrews examined the damaged area. Additionally, the bow of the fatal ship was dangerously angled downward, allowing seawater to flow from one bulkhead into the adjacent compartment. After doing a fast calculation, Andrews calculated that the Titanic might stay afloat for at least an hour and a half, if not longer. The captain then gave the order to load the lifeboats, having already told his wireless operators to ask for assistance. A little over an hour after making contact with the iceberg, the first lifeboat was lowered, marking the start of a mainly chaotic and unorganized evacuation. The lifeboat only had 28 passengers when it sailed, despite being built to accommodate 65. This unfortunately was to be the result. Almost all of the lifeboats would be released pitifully underfilled, with some carrying only a few people amid the uncertainty and the mayhem in the final hours before the Titanic crashed into the sea. According to the law of the sea, women and children boarded the boats first, and men were only allowed to embark when no women or children were present. However, a large number of the victims were actually women and children as a result of the chaotic processes that first failed to bring them to the boats. The Titanic stubbornly remained afloat for nearly 3 hours, exceeding Andrews' projection. Acts of great bravery and craven cowardice were displayed throughout those hours. Between the order to load the lifeboats and the ship's last dive, hundreds of human tragedies took place. Families were split up in the chaos, men said goodbye to spouses and children, and brave people sacrificed their seats to stay with loved ones or let a more vulnerable traveler get away. 706 people ultimately survived the Titanic's disaster. Sinking of the Titanic. Each of the ship's most notable passengers handled the situation in a way that has become a fundamental aspect of the Titanic mythology. White Star Managing Director Ismay assisted with loading some of the boats and then boarded a collapsible during its descent. He would never forget the shame of surviving the catastrophe when so many others had died, even if there were no women or children nearby when he abandoned ship. Ismay, one of the few White Star Line executives who survived the sinking, was a coward for taking a spot in a lifeboat that could have been offered to other passengers. His only worries were media attention, bad press, and financial loss. He would later conceal many details of what transpired by sending coded signals to England and New York City. According to Ismay himself, he just stepped in when there was a space in the lifeboat. He had the option to warn others about the area, but he was only interested in himself. The Titanic's main designer, Thomas Andrews, was last seen staring blankly at ship artwork on the wall in the first-class smoking area. When John Jacob Astor IV dropped his wife Madeline into a lifeboat, Astor said that she was pregnant and asked if he might leave with her. When he was denied, he was able to say goodbye with a kiss as the boat was lowered away. Isidor Straus declined any preferential treatment, despite being given a seat due to his age, and his wife Ida refused to abandon her husband. After retiring to their room, the couple died together.
Isidor? You know it does no good.
After going back to their quarters with his valet, Benjamin Guggenheim changed into formal evening attire. He famously said, "We are dressed in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen."
Mr. Guggenheim, these are for you, Mr. Guggenheim.
Oh, thank you. We are dressed in our best and are prepared to go down as gentlemen.
As he emerged onto the deck. After helping to load the boats, Molly Brown was compelled to board one of the last to go, fearing that they would be overrun by desperate people attempting to flee the frigid waters. She begged the ship's crewmen to look back for survivors, but they refused.
If we go back, they'll swamp the boat. They'll pull us right down, I'm telling you. Knock it off. You're scaring me. Come on, girls. Grab an oar. Let's go.
Are you out of your mind? We're in the middle of the North Atlantic. Now, do you people want to live or do you want to die?
At approximately 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the Titanic, almost perpendicular and with many of her lights still shining, eventually sank beneath the ocean surface. After hearing the Titanic's distress signal at midnight and steaming at full speed all the while avoiding ice floes, Cunard's Carpathia collected up all the lifeboats throughout the morning. There were just 706 survivors among them. The Titanic disaster's aftermath. In depth, hearings on the Titanic sinking were held at least by 5 different boards of inquiry on both sides of the Atlantic, who spoke with numerous nautical experts and interviewed dozens of witnesses. From the behavior of the commanders and their crew to the ship's design, every possible topic was looked at. Conspiracy theories about the Titanic were also common. Although it has been long believed that the ship sank because of the gash that caused the bulkhead compartments to flood over the years, a number of alternative theories have been proposed, such as the following. The ship's steel plates were too brittle for the nearly freezing Atlantic waters, rivets popped due to the impact, and the expansion joints failed. Apart from the catastrophe's technological features, popular culture has given the Titanic tragedy a deeper, almost legendary significance. Since the Titanic's builders thought they had constructed an unstoppable vessel that would be immune to the forces of nature, many see the tragedy as a morality play about the parallels of human hubris and arrogance. The public's intense reaction to the Titanic sinking when she was lost can be explained by this same arrogance. Misinformation was rampant because of the sluggish and unreliable communication methods of the time, and there was a general lack of conviction that the ship could not have sunk. At first, newspapers said the ship had struck an iceberg but was still afloat and being towed to port with all of its passengers. Accurate reports took many hours to spread, and even then, it was difficult for anyone to believe that this shining example of contemporary technology could sink on her first voyage and take more than 1,500 lives with her. John Maxton Graham, a ship historian, has likened the Titanic tale to the 1986 Challenger space shuttle accident. In that event, the idea that one of the most advanced inventions ever made could go extinct with its crew made the entire globe shudder. Despite our hubris and reliance on technology, infallibility, both disasters caused a dramatic collapse in confidence, exposing the fact that we are still susceptible to human frailties and error. The Titanic wreckage. Soon after the Titanic sank, efforts were made to find the wreck. However, it was very hard to find due to the technical limitations and the size of the North Atlantic. Ultimately, the RMS Titanic's wreck was found in 1985 by a combined French and American expedition. The tragic ship was located in the North Atlantic, approximately 13,000 feet below the surface, 400 miles east of Newfoundland. Numerous pieces from the ship, including jewelry, furniture, shoes, machinery, and other goods are still intact, indicating that the wreck is still in comparatively good shape. Various manned and unmanned submersibles have visited the wreck since it's been discovered, removing various artifacts that are now housed in Titanic museums worldwide. Companies and archaeologists must obtain permission from several nations to remove even the smallest bit of debris or artifacts from the site, which is considered an active graveyard. Well, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the Titanic. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and please write down below, what do you think about the Titanic? Do you believe there's a conspiracy theory? Do you believe the captain and the crew are to blame? What do you think about the tragedy? I would greatly like to read those below. Please watch part 2. It will make more sense, so watch part 2. Again, like, comment, subscribe. Please share this to anyone you think would enjoy it, and I will see you all in the next episode. Please watch the video here in the playlist over here.